Ready for a deep dive. Today we're talking ancient history.
Really ancient.
Exactly, like way back. Unpacking how cultures across the world have worked with psychedelics for literally thousands of years.
Not just worked with, I think, woven into their societies in a way that we're just starting to, rediscover.
It's true, and we have some really compelling archaeological evidence to get us started.
Oh, absolutely.
So let's start with, there was this amazing discovery in 2008 in the Bolivian Andes, a 1,000-year-old shaman's bag.
A literal time capsule.
I know. What did they find in there?
So anthropologists found all these tools for preparing psychoactive substances.
Wow.
They found a snuffing tube and even traces of the substances themselves. We're talking cocaine, psilocybin, the psychedelic component of magic mushrooms. And get this, ingredients for ayahuasca.
1,000 years ago. That just blows my mind.
I know. It really shows that this isn't a new thing. We're really rediscovering something that ancient cultures knew a lot about.
And it seems like they use these substances so differently than we tend to think about them today.
For sure. Like, even the term psychedelic is a modern invention.
Right?
Indigenous communities would often refer to these substances as spirit medicines. And they weren't just used for treating illnesses. They were used for, all sorts of things.
Yeah, you mentioned finding lost objects earlier, and that's not usually the first thing that comes to mind.
Right. It makes you think about how integrated these substances were in their daily lives. Imagine if you needed to find something really important, and you would go to a practitioner who would use these substances to help.
That suggests a whole different relationship to, I don't know, to consciousness and to the world around them.
Absolutely. And it makes you wonder what they understood that maybe we're just starting to get a glimpse of now.
Exactly. So let's get into some specifics. You mentioned the Aztecs and their use of psilocybin mushrooms. What was their relationship with these substances like?
So the Aztecs, they didn't just ingest these mushrooms in isolation. Their ceremonies were very intentional and often involved elements that we might even recognize today as similar to group therapy.
Group therapy.
Yeah, like imagine dancing, singing, even weeping, and sharing visions, all as part of a communal experience. This wasn't just a solitary journey. It was a shared experience that was woven into the fabric of their society.
That seems like such a fundamentally different worldview than what we often see in Western cultures.
Totally. I mean, think about it. Western medicine often focuses on the individual. I mean, think about it. Treating specific ailments. I mean, think about it. But these cultures, they use these substances to connect with natural and spiritual realms. I mean, think about it. To restore balance to the community and to the world around them.
So it's not just about individual benefit, it's about this broader sense of harmony and interconnectedness.
Right. It's about recognizing that what impacts one person can impact the entire community and even the natural world.
This makes me think about the role of music in a lot of these ceremonies. It's not just background noise, is it?
Oh, definitely not. Music, especially rhythmic drumming, is often a key element. It can help induce trance-like states, aid in creative expression, and even, interact with the auditory hallucinations that some of these substances can cause.
So it's almost like the music becomes another way to connect, to bind the participants and the practitioner and the experience itself together.
It's a very holistic approach. And this understanding of healing, it extends beyond just the physical. For these cultures, illness wasn't always seen as something purely biological. It was often a sign of imbalance in the community or a disconnect from the natural world.
So it's not just about treating the symptom, it's about restoring wholeness.
Exactly. And you see this in so many different cultures. Like the Wixárika people, they use peyote to help their community recover from a malaria outbreak.
Oh, really?
They saw the illness as a result of imbalance. And their peyote ceremonies, they were a way to restore that balance, demonstrating the link between individual and communal well-being.
It's amazing to think about how differently these cultures viewed these experiences and what we might be able to learn from them.
Definitely. And that's just scratching the surface. We've gone from a shaman's toolkit to these elaborate ceremonies. And it really makes you wonder, what can we learn from these ancient practices? We've gone from a shaman's toolkit to these elaborate ceremonies. And it really makes you wonder, what insights did they have that we're only beginning to rediscover? It's like we're trying to piece together this puzzle with ancient pieces.
Right, trying to understand these practices that have been going on for centuries.
And it makes you wonder, are we even looking at it the right way? Are we missing something?
Yeah, I think that's a really important question, especially now with so much interest in psychedelics and their potential benefits. Are we overlooking something crucial?
I think a lot of indigenous researchers and practitioners would say yes.
In what way?
Well, think about it. These cultures, They've been stewards of this knowledge for millennia. They faced persecution, misunderstanding, all to protect these sacred practices, practices that are often deeply tied to their cultural identity.
So it's understandable that there's a sense of caution, maybe even distrust, when they see what's happening now.
Exactly. You have this multi-billion-dollar industry emerging, built in many ways on these traditions, and yet,
They're often left out of the conversation.
or they see very little benefit from it.
Yeah, that seems like a huge ethical concern.
It is, and it goes beyond just representation. There's a risk of reducing these profound ancient practices to just a transaction.
Like, take this pill, have this experience, feel better.
Exactly. And we lose sight of the holistic context, the community aspect, the singing, the dancing, the connection to something larger than oneself. These elements were integral to how these substances were used for thousands of years.
It's almost like we're trying to isolate the experience from the very culture and environment that give it meaning.
And that isolation, it can be dangerous. Well, imagine someone having this powerful, potentially life-altering experience in a clinical setting, and then they're sent back into their everyday life. No community support, no framework for processing or integrating that experience. What happens then?
It seems like that could do more harm than good.
Exactly. We're facing a mental health crisis, and while psychedelics hold a lot of promise, we need to approach them with humility, with respect, and with the understanding that we don't have all the answers.
So where do we go from here? How do we bridge this gap between ancient wisdom and modern science in a way that feels ethical and effective?
It starts with listening to indigenous voices, respecting their intellectual property rights, ensuring that they share in the benefits of this growing field, and acknowledging that these experiences are complex.
It's not just about the chemical, right?
Right. It's social, it's spiritual, it's communal. We need to be mindful of our approach. Avoid repeating the mistakes of the past.
The exploitation.
Exactly. And we need to remain open to the wisdom these ancient practices hold. It's a delicate balance, but finding it might be the key to truly unlocking the potential of these substances.
It's amazing to think that after all this time, there's still so much to learn. Not just about the substances themselves, but about our relationship with them and the cultures that have used them for centuries. It's been quite a journey. From that 1,000-year-old shaman's bag
1,000 years.
to those elaborate ceremonies,
Yeah.
and now this huge surge in interest, a multi-billion-dollar industry.
It makes you think, like, what will they think about this time period 1,000 years from now?
Right. What will they unearth? So as we wrap up our deep dive today, what's the one thing you really hope listeners take away from this?
That the power of these substances, it's not just chemical.
It's more than that.
It's cultural. It's spiritual. It's about community and connection. For thousands of years, these practices help people heal, help them connect, help them find meaning. And as we rediscover these substances in the 21st century, it's important to remember that it's not enough to just replicate a chemical.
There's more to it.
We need to approach this with humility, with respect, with a willingness to learn from the past, from the cultures that have been working with these substances for centuries.
If we want to truly understand the potential,
Exactly.
it's about understanding that we don't have all the answers.
And that maybe, just maybe,
Yeah.
some of those answers lie in the wisdom of these ancient practices.
It's about remembering that sense of community, that interconnectedness that was so central to these experiences for millennia.
It's not just about what we can gain as individuals. It's about how we can use this knowledge to build stronger communities, healthier communities, and a more balanced relationship with ourselves and the world around us.
A lot to think about, a lot to learn, and a really important conversation to be having. So for those listening who want to explore this further, we highly recommend checking out the work of researchers like Uriah Selidwin.
Her work is fascinating.
How, Samuel?
He brings a really unique perspective.
And Osiris Sinue Gonzalez Romero, all of whom we mentioned in our sources today. Their work offers some really valuable insights into a worldview that, well, it might just hold the key to unlocking deeper connections within ourselves and our world.
It's a journey.
It really is. Thanks for joining us on this incredible deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep the conversation going.